Welcome. All right. I'll let you kick it off, but my
Okay.
signal's I'm in the car. Just
Yep.
yeah, happy to be here.
Well, we're excited to have everybody showing up. This has been a great series that we've been putting together. We like to jump right in. I'm glad to see people joining with their cameras on. It's always great to see the faces all around the country. And if you can put in the chat real quick, just where you're checking in from. It was always great to see the stuff pop up. So just in the chat, just type in the town you're representing, where you're from, or where you're at. You can put in there. I'm just gonna put Washington D.C. in here. But just let's see what's going on. What's up to Connecticut? I feel like a DJ. Shout outs to Vineyard Haven, Mass. All right, my people in Vineyard Haven. Rhode Island. All right. Good, good, good. Ipswich, Massachusetts. Yes, indeed. Chicago. All right. All right, good to see you. And give people a shout out if somebody's from your hometown. Okay, Oak Bluffs, Lucinda. Good to see you, OB. I'm always rocking my gold chain with Mom Martha's Vineyard stuff right here. Chambersburg, one of our original locations, one of the first places we ever spoke with was in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Okay, well, great. Well, I'm glad everybody's got a chance to settle in. I'm gonna jump right in. We have some very special guests today. And I'll just say this to you. When we first started a long talk, it caught fire in the athletics departments, right? We met some people, and it only took a few people. Like we met some real serious people that took it off and ran with it. And because of people like, may have heard the stories of Rudy Fuller and some of the other folks that happened in athletics, that one conversation turned into thousands of people. 5 years later, the same exact thing is happening here with our two guests today. And they're going to tell you about who they are, where they come from. I'm not even going to spend a lot of time doing that. But we at a long talk are so excited about being in communion and partnership with them because this is the next phase of what we're doing. I said it just like the presidential terms. We came in on one administration and we had a run through the schools. That was our focus in that term. And I know for a fact that as we go through this administration here, the work we're going to be doing in the churches, the work we're going to be doing in communities that are just, where churches touch everybody. But the work that's going to happen there, we're so excited about this next phase. And we owe it really all to these two individuals, to be honest with you. Like, we wouldn't be in these spaces if it were not for these two people. We may have eventually gotten there, but we wouldn't have gotten there the way that we did and the way that we are now. So we're just super blessed, super excited to have them here today. Pastor Joanne and Effie McAvoy. I just want to. I'm gonna let them talk and tell you about who they are and what and how they've been together. But they are the dynamic duo. We were joking before the call about how they have a kind of a Kyle and Kamal dynamic going on, and it matches up with some of the stuff that we do because you need partnership in this. And when you have someone really close to you that has the same mission, that can complement your skills and your talents, but it has the same drive, it makes all the difference in the world. That's what how Kamal and I got this far. But I just want to give pass over the mic. I'm going to start with Pastor Joanne because that was my connection and where we started. So actually, I'm going to hand it over to both of y'all because I have a plan. I don't want to mess up y'all plan and y'all setup. So I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
gonna.
don't mess up
Yeah,
our
I'm
plan
sorry.
because we have an order, and the order is so first we want to give honor to the divine for the opportunity to be present. My name is Reverend Effie McAvoy. I chair the New England Annual Conference's Commission on Religion and Race. And Joanne is a team member on said commission. I also want to say that on this call, there are other team members on this call for the New England Conference Commission on Religion and Race. In particular, the person who I deem as my work wife, Claire Holston, is on this call as well. So we want to give a shout out to Claire as well. And my wife knows that Claire is my work wife, so there's nothing twitchy going on about that. Um, so I want to so my task as the opening of the session is to give y'all a brief history of who we are. And to do that, I have to give you a very brief history of the United Methodist Church, right? In the year of our Lord, 1968, the year that Dr. King was assassinated, the Methodist Church and the United Evangelical Brethren Church, along with the Methodist Protestant Church, came together in Chicago and formed this new denomination called the United Methodist Church. With the formation of the United Methodist Church, one of the things that happened in this formation was a mandate set by the Evangelical United Brethren to tell the segregated Methodist Church that they would not join with a racist institution and they had to desegregate. Thus, the formation of the United Methodist Church with the creation of this brand new commission called the General Commission on Religion and Race, which still exists today. The general secretary's name is Giovanni Arroyo, and he's in DC. So you should look him up, Kyle. He's at the Methodist Center at the Church and Society building across the street from the Supreme Court. He's awesome. Anyway, so every annual conference is tasked to have a conference commission on religion and race because of the mandated General Commission on Religion and Race. That's where we step in. We are the New England Annual Conference, which is made up of 5.5 states, right?
5.5, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so half of Connecticut and the rest of New England. So Connecticut all the way up to the Canadian border. So Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and down to Connecticut. And we are tasked with being the team that helps with educating the church and becoming aware of systemic racism in the system and how we can then engage in being anti-racist within society. So that is a brief history of who we are. We are the anti-racist team for the annual conference, for the New England Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. That's our task. And engaging with the church in working with racial issues. Joanne.
Well, thank you, Effie. That was a brilliant brief intro. I really appreciate that. So a couple of years back, I think it was 2 years ago on July 4th of 2024, right? Was it last year? Good gracious. Anyway, I had attended every year on Martha's Vineyard, which is where I'm appointed. There is a reading of Frederick Douglass's amazing speech, "What to the Slave is Your 4th of July." There's an annual event, and that particular year it was held in the Tabernacle, which is in Oak Bluffs, and it's in that the campsite with all those gingerbread cottages. And the Tabernacle is right next to the church that I serve. And so I went to that speech that year. I think I was one of the speakers as well, because we took, there were several people who would read that speech. And then after the speech was done, we're all milling around and chatting with each other. And I noticed this table, a long talk about the uncomfortable truth. What's this all about? So I started talking with Kyle. And when he told me what they're all about, I just lit up because as it happens, I am working on my Doctor of Ministry degree, and my research is all about engaging in anti-racist work as a spiritual practice. So when these guys were telling me about what they do, I said, okay, we got to meet for some coffee. And we just Kyle Kamal and I were just on fire when we finished that conversation, because I told him, look, I see this. You guys should be part of the United Methodist Church across the nation, really, truly. And I'm going to do everything that I can to help make that happen. So I brought that to the Conference Commission on Religion and Race. I brought it to Effie and the rest of our team. And I will admit I was a little nervous about that. I will, because I was a newbie. I don't even know if I was officially on the commission yet. I don't think so, right? So I was thinking, who am I, right? But Effie and everyone else was like, oh, wow, this sounds great. So what ended up happening is earlier this year, and during Lent, the bishop had a long talk, the activation experience. It's 21 days. That was our Lenten journey with a bishop.
So I'm going to interrupt now because we only have an hour. We want to have engaging
Okay,
conversation.
go.
So one of the things that the New England Conference has done historically during the season of Lent, the bishop historically, starting with Bishop Sudarshana Devadar, may he rest in peace, would have the bishop's pre-Lenten gathering for its church leaders, for its clergy and church leaders, so that we would be prepared to lead our congregations into Lent. Lay persons were invited, but the pre-Lenten gathering was designed for clergy persons to get prepared to go into the season of Lent. Those of y'all who don't don't celebrate Lent or don't know what that is, it is a 40-day period before Easter season that some Protestant and all Catholic traditions celebrate to get us in the mindset of penitence and celebration of the resurrected Christ. So we have a new bishop, and he's serving 2 conferences. And we were like, we don't know if he's going to continue this or not, but we can help take some of the weight off of him and ask him if we could have his permission to kind of co-opt the bishop's pre-Lenten gathering and turn it into a Lenten discipline. And so we reached out to Bishop Bickerton's office, and he was all for it. And so I want to give a shout out to Bishop Bickerton and the New England Annual Conference leadership staff and my district superintendent who's on this call. Joanne and I are in the same district, our district superintendent, for the support and for saying yes. Everything that we have brought forth to the annual conference with a long talk, it has been supported and eagerly embraced by conference leadership and folk who have the ability to tell us no. And believe it or not, according to the discipline, there's not that many people that can truly tell us no, right? But there are some. And so when it comes to anti-racist work in the conference. And so we got the history of the church. We got Joanne meeting Kyle and Kamal, them like having coffee and like going for it. Joanne coming to the team and say, hey, I met these guys. And then the team's like, oh, let's have a conversation with these guys. And so the next step is I met with the guys, and then the guys came to the team, and the team fell in love with it. We bring it to the conference, and we start this wave of small talk during Lent back earlier this year in February, right? And that we had our first long talk. And then we're like, how do we move this on? How do we move this on? And so there's some more backstory that we want to share with y'all. So the previous year in 2023 at our annual conference, because of contracting and all kinds of wonderful things, we ended up having to hold annual conference on Juneteenth. And so for those of us who are the descendants of the enslaved, we weren't happy about that. And so we made a petition to the floor. And one of the things that we can do as Methodist Christians, we can make a rule. So we asked for we made a rule, and that everybody voted on it. It was passed that anytime annual conference was to happen with Juneteenth, that there had to be a focus on something that pertains to racial justice. And so this happened this past year, and we were like, what are we going to do for Juneteenth? And they were like, and so the conference was like, we're working on it. And we like, well, we have an idea. Can we invite a long talk to come and be our order of the day for Juneteenth? What that means is when you have all kinds of business happening, when you have an order of the day, business has to stop. Business has to stop, and that order of the day must go forth. And so we had a long talk as the order of the day on Juneteenth, and then we invited them to do a breakfast gathering early in the morning with the anticipated hope that maybe 45 to 50 people would show up for that early morning gathering. And what happened next was Kyle and Kamal does the long talk on Juneteenth. We exit for dinner, and then we're like, well, we'll see who shows up on Friday morning. We'll see who shows up. Joanne, on Friday, what happened?
So as Effie said, we were expecting maybe 30, 40 people, because that's usually what happens for these 7:15 sessions, because most people don't want to be up that early. And people were so excited on Juneteenth. And the bishop said, so who's committed to come in, tomorrow morning? And what time do you have to be here? 7:15. He said, no. You have to be here at 7 so that it can start at 7:15. People were absolutely so enthusiastic, and we pretty much filled the ballroom. It was almost the same number of people who were there during the day before. So it was extraordinary. And I have to say, this particular session is where they shared their CPR process, and I'll let them talk about that a little bit more. And people were so excited because this gave them a tool. Because there are a lot of good people who, I want to do this work, but where do I start? What do I do? Because a lot of the trainings that were offered in our businesses and so forth is more about, knowledge, right? It's all here. So how can we come from here? And so the technique, the CPR technique, that is the thing. And it's so, so brilliant. And I think at the end of that session, if I'm not mistaken, the entire room just stood up and gave them a standing ovation, because it was just extraordinary. It was just
it gets better. So because one of my tasks, right, one of my goals in ministry is to as a long talk talks about, they want to have an anti-racist at every table. The goal of C-Corps in New England is to have an anti-racist in every pew, right? In every pew of the congregation. And so what happened after their presentation, after them teaching folk about the CPR protocol at annual conference, what happened was one of the members of annual conference then stood up, presented once again a new rule, right, to the annual conference. I'm trying to use layman's terms and not try to use churchy language, but a new rule to the annual conference that folk should take part in a long talk and the CPR protocol, and particularly clergy leadership and so forth and so on. And how we did it to make it even more palatable for folk who are looking for time to do things. There's a requirement in the United Methodist Church and the New England Conference that folk who are serving churches we have a continuing education requirement. And we have to give the information in our annual review. Yes, I'm working on that, Wanda. In our annual review every year, we have to talk about what we've done for continuing education. But we have to get permission from the Board of Ordained Ministry. So we got permission to have the process of the long talk offer continuing education units to people once they complete the process. And go from there. So what happened was somebody stood up, not connected with C-Corps team, who experienced a long talk that day at annual conference, and proposed a new rule that a long talk would then be a part of how we would engage with learning moving forward. And that was beautiful. And from that, Kyle and Kamal, then the core team had decided we were going to offer another wave of a long talk after annual conference, with the hope that this would start people wanting to go through the process. Next thing we know, we started, was it 4 or 5 more cohorts, 4 more cohorts of a long talk in New England
July.
Annual Conference, going through the process and sharing the 90-minute video and having the conversations and reading the resources and doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets even better. In the process of doing all this, Kamal reached out and said, we are trying to put together a civil rights pilgrimage. And we want to
do me a favor, make sure you don't say the date though, because I want to
I'm not saying dates because it's not done yet. We're working on it. We got a civil rights pilgrimage. And he was like, how are we gonna make this happen? So we're like, we'll figure it out. So right now, members, the Commission on Religion and Race is in the process of creating a civil rights pilgrimage for members of the New England Annual Conference to go to the King Center in Atlanta and to then go to Selma, Montgomery, to do that journey over a period of days. And I don't know, Sarah, where you live at? Can we join? I don't know where you at. Um, we're in the process, but it gets even better. It gets even better. So when we said, yeah, we're going to make this happen, we're going to make this happen. And then we reached out to, once again, the leaders in the annual conference, our director of connectional ministries in our bishop's office. And we reached out to the bishop's, the bishop's administrative assistant, the exec to the bishop. And we were like, this is what we're going to do. We don't know how to make it happen. Can you help us? And Brenda was like, oh my gosh, Bishop Bickerton would love to take part in this. Next thing we know, the bishop is like, I've been wanting to do this for years. Let's make it happen. Mm-hmm. And so not only are we in the process of then creating this pilgrimage, the civil rights pilgrimage, but the bishop is determined that this civil rights pilgrimage is going to be something that happens biannually for us. And in the meantime, we're continuing to share the work of A Long Talk, not just in the New England Annual Conference, but we're sharing it amongst other conferences. I think they've connected with the Florida Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. They've connected with New York Conference of the Annual United Methodist Church and other spaces and places. And we're going to continue this conversation until Methodism in the continental United States and abroad understand that this is a means, a tangible means that we as Methodist Christians can engage in these conversations in a way that brings forth transformation of the soul. Because racism is a sin. It's a sin. And I have to speak as I'm an elder in the church, and we want to be nice about stuff, but the sin of racism is prevalent in our society. And basically, to give my definition of sin is that thing which separates us from connecting with the divine. And as a Christian who believes in the incarnation, when God created people, God breathed part of God's self into us. So we all have the life of the divine living in us. So if I'm looking at you, I should be able to see the light of Christ in you, or the divine, the light of God in you, because God breathed God's self in you. So if I hate you because of the other, that means that I am sinning against God, because I'm sinning against the God in you. Mm-hmm. That's my definition. Anything that separates us from God in my world is sin. So it's not, I don't get me to digressing about I'm not going to preach a sermon. I'm trying to make sure that we give you the information, and then we can answer some questions and talk about it. But the excitement we have in New England about A Long Talk is very simple. The United Methodist Church is a church in the continental United States, is a predominantly white church. It's predominantly European-centric. It's predominantly Anglo, right? There are members of the church who are Black, Indigenous people of color. There are leaders in the church who are Black, Indigenous people of color. But the majority of folk in the pews are white folk. And one of the things that A Long Talk talks about is white folk front and center, right? White folk to the front. And how do we engage and give people the tools when folk have not have been taught, right? And I think the Bible says, how will they know unless they be taught, right? And how can they be taught unless someone is sent? So we are doing the work to be able to teach people so that we can send people to do better and more. All right, Joanne.
Can I just jump in really quickly? Effie, you know how it is when you talk, I get hype. I'm trying to Joanne, just give me 30 seconds.
Oh, sure.
I need you all to hear what Joanne said in the beginning when she said, I was hesitant on bringing this to the committee. And that's a lot of times what stops people from stepping up when someone makes the comment, when someone at the dinner table or a relative says something like, well, it's the uncle, it's the cousin. But when we're hesitant and we don't step in and take action and not just on comments, but something like stepping up and you're like, well, I'm new to the committee and what if they don't hear me? But that courageousness is part of what we look to activate with A Long Talk. And you might say, well, what qualifies me to be here? The fact that I am. Well, who sent you? I am that I am. I'm here. Let's go. And so what you're seeing is a culmination of action and progress over perfection. It hasn't been perfect, but this is the first organization. We have been talking about this trip to Selma, to Brian Stevenson's legacy museums for years. And not only did we talk about it, it is literally happening right before our eyes. And hundreds of pastors in the New England Conference are engaging in this work. And again, we're not doing it perfect, but we're doing it in a time where we really need to be doing it. So I'm sorry. I'll pass it back to you, Joanne. I just had
Oh,
to
no,
share.
no, no. That's great. That's great. Um, sometimes people have a hard time talking to friends and family about, the thing you said or the thing you did, microaggressions and so on. Um, and I wasn't worried about doing that. I truly was, I was scared to bring this to the commission because like, who am I? I'm a newbie and a white chick to boot, right? So who the heck am I to tell them what to do? And so I was really, really so pleased that it was so well received and that I was given a voice and to bring this. So and it is really making a difference in New England because people, as I said earlier, they really want to do the work. They just don't know how. They don't know how do you do it? Like I know that these things are wrong, but I don't want to have an argument with my cousin, you know? And the whole activation experience from a long talk gives us a way of approaching it that is non-confrontational, that isn't telling people how awful they are, but rather is just giving them an option. Like you're basically holding up a mirror to people. Like, do you hear yourself? You said this thing, and how do you think that makes other people feel? Like, how would you feel if someone said that to you? And so some people will say, "Oh, wait, I hadn't thought about it that way," and other people will say, yeah, exactly. I don't care. So now you know who you're dealing with, right? I don't want to take all the a long talk.
So I think, yeah, but I think that I want to add too about the core team. One of the things that we've done on the core team that is very important is that one, when even though the conference year is January to December, but the committee membership is announced in July, right? Because you have to submit reports. Well, when people are announced to serve on core team, I invite them to come because I don't want them to come in June and January to figure out what we're doing when we are working all year round. So I invite them to come and participate when they are assigned to the team.
Mhm.
And one of the other thing that we do in the core team is that just because you're not officially on the team by conference rule does not mean that you don't have voice and you don't have say in what we decide and what we do.
Yeah.
I give everybody opportunity to share and to offer their input, and we make decisions based on collaboration and consensus for the most part. There's some things
Mhm.
like budgets and reports that have to be submitted that we just can't. We just have to do it. We can't collaborate on should we submit a report or not. No, we have to submit that report. But the other things as a team, the goal is to always be in unity about the work that we're doing because it's such hard work.
Yeah.
When we're dealing with work pertaining to race and racism and systemic oppression, dealing with work pertaining to all kinds of things. I mean, we have legislation on the books that each church is supposed to do some research to talk about the history of their facility and where they're at and is it part of redlining and all those type of things. We have to be on board when we get pushback from stuff like that. We have written policies for the annual conference that deal with racial harassment and how do we respond and how do we react and what's the team going to look like if there is an issue where people are targeted because of their racial identity. And so we can't be in a team that has big eyes and little U's when we are trying to do this work together and when it's so hard. Um, Somebody has to be in charge to sign paperwork and to be called out and to show up in meetings. But we really work hard to make sure that everybody has voice and everybody's opinion matters and is listened to. Now, do we agree on everything? No. Does everybody get their way all the time? No, because it's not possible. And sometimes we just wrong and we have to be corrected. But that's the culture of knowing that our heart is about this work and trying to do it well. So yeah, Joanne being new, her fear is legit, but the culture of the team and what we've built is such that the reassurance she felt was immediate. And now she knows that anything she brings to the team is going to be addressed, it's going to be considered, and and something's going to happen with it. And that's how we strive to work as a team on the Commission of Religion and Race.
Let me say this.
So,
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
sir. I'm done.
No, it's great, and what I want people to get is because a lot of times people are listening to your stories and what you've done, and sometimes it's hard to relate to what each person can do.
Mm.
What two things that I'm hearing is that, one, Joanne was on the lookout, right? She went to something, she put herself in a position to even run into us, right? She got up and came, it was a short walk from the church, but right across the way, and then was looking for us. And because she had it in her heart, she was focused, even though she was new, it connected. But then she was able to connect to an organization that knows the terrain. And I want y'all to understand that there's two levels of this. There's individual activism, and then there's structural and organizational activism. And again, while Effie's saying it's not perfect, there's a system in place for them to get this work done. And a lot of us individually have work we can do in our short space. But as for the long term and the long run, what we have to build, we have to connect with organizations. And that might mean you need to seek out some people in your community. I promise you, there are people all over the place in little spots, whether it's in the church, whether it's in community centers, if it's just individuals. But find some organization because you don't have to do all this on your own. You bring your energy, you bring your excitement. There are other people that already know the terrain of the land, and you just kind of work together. But we are behind, y'all. And that's what I want y'all to understand is that the organization from the other side of this has been happening for at least, I just watched a documentary on how this stuff started with Reagan and some other stuff. But the organization for what's happening in our country right now is decades ahead of us.
The
And we have
church
to
is
catch up.
And the church is further behind than the folk in the secular world doing this work.
Yep.
Because
No, they aren't.
especially
I gotta interrupt you. No, y'all are. The other side of the
I
church, the
was gonna
other
say
side of the church is not. It is. I'm sorry, I mean cut you off, but this is the important part. And even in the church, you see, this has always been a spiritual battle. You started with that. This has always been a spiritual battle. And so the enemy of this spirit has been organized in the church for a very long time. It's the goodness, this side of the
yeah.
battle. It's low.
That's
Yeah,
what I was trying to
yeah,
convey, Kyle, is that I was gonna say the progressive church or the liberal church
yeah.
or the mainline denominations that are not the black church, right? Have always we have been in this space where we have erred on the betterment of human consciousness, right? My conscience won't allow me to be, I'm not this way, so that means my church isn't this
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
right? Not realizing, and I thank you for saying that, because when I speak of the church, I'm not, I'm talking about what I'm in, right? And I apologize for not being, but we are aware that the fundamental and the evangelical and the white evangelical church, in particular, and some of our black siblings, in particular, have gone on this bandwagon of of promoting the harm and the lies, that promote the sin of racism within society.
Yeah.
And the church, the mainline Protestant churches that are progressive, are behind, so far behind, and that we have trouble even having the conversation. Back in 2016, when Bishop Devadar reached out to me and Claire and said, "Will you serve on this team?" And we were like, "No, but okay." And we still here almost 10 years later. The idea of standing in front of our white siblings in Christ and saying, we got to do something about this racism stuff, and the pushback we experienced 10 years ago in 2016 as compared to what's happening today is drastic. The hope that we see in the congregations. So in New England is beautiful. There are churches that were introduced to a long talk at annual conference back in June that have gathered, and they gather today, and they have their sessions, and not connected to the core team. They have taken it upon themselves to get together as small clusters, and that's Methodism, all straight small groups and clustering. That's like what John Wesley back in the day. So we happy about that. Kyle and Kamal had informed me that there's folk up in the North Country. That's what we call Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. But up in the North Country that have rented out advertising in convention centers or sports arenas or something to let people know that there's a place and a space to gather to have these hard conversations to talk about ending systemic racism.
Mhm.
And that's because Joanne went to Frederick Douglass' speech as a pastoral duty to participate in something on a platform because it was her turn, because it was her church's turn as the pastor. And then she looked out and she saw some people that she might want to engage with.
Yeah, just gotta
Right?
do it.
She took a risk in doing her job to step outside the dais to go and see somebody and say, hey, how are y'all doing? What is this thing? Tell me about it. Oh, I'm working on this with my doctorate degree. Oh, I can take this back to this team that I just got assigned to, right? Because remember, she got assigned in June. It's now July,
Yep,
right? Come on
already
now, that's
moving.
nothing but God.
And
For
and
those of us
just
who
to,
believe,
and
that's
just to
nothing
show
but God.
y'all, and just to show,
And
I'm sorry, I'm gonna
yeah,
put in
I'm
the
done.
chat. I'm gonna put in the chat. There's a Padlet board. I'm gonna share my screen real quick just to show you what that turned into. Because the great thing about it is they captured everything. This was I've spoken in a lot of places, and I've spoken to a lot of different groups. I killed it on these 2 days. I was crushing it because the energy in that room, I've been waiting to talk to these people the whole time since I started doing, and I'm not a real churchy person, I'm not, but I've been waiting to talk to the people in the church since the beginning of this. And so you can take that link, you can watch the whole my whole conversation on both Thursday and Friday. They did a recap and then some of the shared media, but I'm gonna give you a little taste of it right here with this. So let me hold on. Be perfect at pretty much. Oops. Progress over perfection. The greatest threat to progress is the expectation of perfection. You're not going to be perfect at pretty much anything you do, but especially as something you've been told you're not supposed to do. See, again, we have been taught that the best thing we can possibly be is racist. That if we can just get to that point, I'm not racist, and I'm not trying to be a good person. But you blend it in with the rest of them. And I'll just be like, if you don't do anything, I'm not sure which side of this you're on. The best way to prove to yourself and to others that you're not a racist is to be an anti-racist. You were never supposed to be on that side of this. That's why no one ever taught you to be anti-racist. So when you try for the first time, you might fail. When you try for the second time, you might fail. And the third time, and the fourth time, and the fifth time. But what about the sixth time? You have learned the skill and the confidence to say, you know what, I know how to interrupt racism, and I can also apply this to sexism and homophobia and anti-Semitism, and we can start interrupting all types of stuff because we got off the sideline and start trying. See, that's what this is about. So if you can just wrap it up 2 things, it's working, and it's not going to be perfect. I just got to get going. We're off and running. The other part. So yeah, I'm excited about what that began, and over 150 people now, probably more than that, of the 4 sessions we did leading out of that, where we did the full 21-day experience. We had about 125 people join us directly from the church, and then every month since then we've continued to have people join us on our Long Talk for Alls, and so it's been what we wanted to get you all with today and understand is that this doesn't work without you. A lot of people say, well, Kyle, man, y'all doing some great things. I see y'all traveling around the country. We don't go anywhere unless somebody tells us where to go. Like every single thing we've ever done is because we ran into a person like Joanne. And whether they were able to do it in their own small space or take it to a much larger space, every single space we've shown up is because we've been invited there. I only work with the willing. I'm not trying to advertise and send out mass emails for anti-racism. And maybe maybe we're going too slow. Come on, maybe we gotta go more big. But for me and my comfort level of who I want to do this work with is when I run into a person, we talk to that person, they put us in touch with other good people who put us in touch with other good people who put us on a platform for a whole bunch of good people.
Mm.
And that's how we get back in the game. But it takes every single person on this call to just do your one introduction. Like, and then whatever's stopping you, whatever's holding you back, you got to get over that. I don't know how else to tell you.
Amen.
You got to get over that because we need you to keep feeding this. It doesn't. The minute y'all stop showing up on these calls is over. So we got to keep going. So this biggest piece of this is to honor the spirit and to honor the spirit that's happening right now in the church. But we can all be evangelicals for goodness.
Yeah. And Kyle, I'm gonna tell you this, right? One of the things that I have learned in my almost 30 years of ordained ministry, yes, it's getting close. One of those things that I have learned in the work over all these years is that folk are afraid of being told no. And because of that fear of being told no, we don't move forward. And my response to people when they tell me I'm afraid of being told no, I tell them I'm a United Methodist pastor. I get told no all the time. But that doesn't stop me from moving forward, right? Because in the work, people are going to tell you no. Michelle's laughing because she's a pastor's wife. She know what that means. People are going to tell you no, but you're still going to have to figure out a way to get the job done. When somebody else tells you no, you got to figure out a way to get the work done. And so if we let ourselves stop because we have hit a hindrance or a roadblock, we will never be successful at anything. Right? So when we are challenging our children at school or when we're challenging ourselves in our workplace, right? When we hit a rough spot, we don't stop because we like to eat. We don't tell our children to quit because we want to build them up for success. But when it comes to this type of work, we don't want our feelings to get hurt, so we stop.
Mm.
And we have to realize that that's not how any of this works. For people with my skin tone and darker and lighter, people that look like me and have experienced life in this world with dark skin, with brown skin, we don't have a choice in the matter.
Right.
We just don't. And so I remember serving a church, and I was talking with my district superintendent, because wherever I went, I knew that people knew who I was because I have a saying that I am the diversity that I seek. And so there are places and spaces where I have served in ministry where I was the only Black person in town, not in my church, in my town. Right. So I would tell my district superintendent when I don't feel it, I don't go outside. And she's like, what? I was like, I'm not going to allow my ministry to be hindered because I can't engage with people today. Right? So I just don't go outside. That's the only choice Black folk have in America. Whereas white folk, if I don't feel it, I'll just go over here and I'll just hang out at the coffee shop and I won't engage with anybody because I can blend in. Or I'll go to the movies and I can disappear over here and blend in. Black folk don't have that option. And especially in New England, outside of Springfield, Boston, and certain metropolitan areas. In New England, we don't have that option. So we either go to a city to blend in, or we don't go outside.
Mm.
So I need people to be aware of that. When we just can't do it anymore, we have to isolate ourselves. And that's no way to have to be in society.
Yeah. What I want to do,
yeah.
And that's what.
Go ahead, Joe. Do you want to say something?
So that's why it's so important for white people to the front. It's, this is our work to do. We're the ones who have the privilege, who enjoy, I can go into just about any space and no one's going to blink an eye. I can go anywhere just about and feel safe, right? So it's up to folks who look like me, sound like me. We got to do this work, and because I don't want any of my siblings to feel that they can't go outside. Like, no, that's just unacceptable. We have to change that. And it's one person at a time, one little conversation at a time. You have far more power than you think you do. And the adversary wants to convince you that you are powerless, that resistance is futile, that you might as well give up right now. I'm here to tell you, love wins every single time, every single time. And you got to believe that. You got to have that in your heart so you can take that with you and show it to other people. I am not going to stop. And maybe it won't happen in my lifetime, but I am not stopping. I will not stop until my sister Effie and everyone like her can go outside and feel safe.
I also want you to think about, because this is important. It's great when we're doing this for Effie and for everybody. White children are in trouble right now.
Mm.
I don't know if y'all saw this thing on the Politico with the group text. I will grab it and put it in the chat. But and someone put in here about the Charlie Kirk messaging, and I'm saying white children, even good-hearted Christians, are following false prophets. I'm just gonna say it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the problem is if they just get the mic louder and get medals of freedom and all kinds of stuff because that's the platform they're given, they're not gonna know they're not supposed to follow that example. It's being legitimatized right in front of us that these ideas, these thoughts should be acceptable. That it was political correctness that made us push this down, not real change. If you really understand what people are saying is that we didn't really want to change. We just had to change our language. And now we can go back to the language again. So it just shows and it peels the scab off to say we really didn't change. And you have to recognize that if other voices, the progressive, the whatever you want to call them voices, are not speaking just as loudly, just as proudly, just as strongly, people will literally just say, well, they must not be right because they don't say it like they feel like they're right. Charlie Kirk sounded right to me. He sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He quoted scriptures. He did all these things, but he said it with conviction and he gave his life for it. So that clearly is the right path. These other people that are scared and quiet about saying stuff, they don't have too much confidence. People are attracted to confidence. So if you can't be, we have to show up with confidence in this space. And I want to really take these last 15 minutes to help people on the call because there's specific stuff we could say, but if there are some questions, if you're trying to have a breakthrough like Joanne did, if you're trying to figure out who do I talk to, where do I go, feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand. Let's talk. I really want to spend the last 15 minutes, if that's all right with you, or I know we were talking about getting to that, to really open up some conversation, some dialogue so that people can get the help they need so that we can come back to this call a month from now, a week from now in a whole different place. So I'll just kind of back up a little bit and do that if anyone has a
Yeah,
question.
and questions too for Effie Joint. Like it's all
Right, that's
like
what I mean.
okay,
Exactly for
perfect,
them.
perfect.
Get the space you need from them, the freedom that you need from them because they are doing it. And if you're trying to figure out how to do it, there's no better people to do it with than these folks right here. So, any questions or any comments off the top? The recording will absolutely be available for this afterwards for sure. We're recording it. It'll be posted in the Long Talk universe, and we'll send it out to folks with the email that are registered here today. We can definitely just go back to talking if nobody has questions. Kamal, did you have any particular?
I
Yeah.
do want to say something
Oh,
because
we
I
got one question. I'm
okay,
sorry,
okay.
Sarah. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so I've been to your long talk a few years ago, loved it, and I'm also really involved in my church. And whenever my brother, who's a Trump supporter, and I talk about anything, he always says, well, why does that concern you?
Mm.
How do I help white people in my family and my friends who live in the suburbs, who live in places where they don't see people different than them? How do I help them understand that it's not just about their own little family? White people are so, we're so, as long as my family's good, I'm good. They don't, I don't understand how to help my brother see anything differently. That's what I need help with.
I will
I
open up the floor to.
I would love some tips on how to help him see beyond just
So
this.
So is your
Hold on,
is
Effie.
it?
I didn't mean to cut you off. I would like a white person to help her, actually, because I don't really, and I'm not cutting you
I
off.
have a question. I have
What?
a follow-up question. I don't have an
Okay.
answer. I
Oh,
have a
sorry. Go ahead.
follow-up question. Is your brother is your brother's family church going, or are they
Yeah.
just okay?
They,
They're
they
church
live,
going people.
Okay.
yep, they live in Peoria, Illinois. They have a completely different experience than I do living in Chicago. And I think that's a big problem in our country is just how isolated some people are.
Has anyone has an experience or help that you can speak to with this directly? Help some. Go ahead, Ella. You're on mute if you're talking, Ella. Oh, I saw your hand, but I couldn't. Let me see. You were on mute. Okay. Was there someone else, right? If Ella's trying to get her mic together. Any other thoughts about maybe someone's had some experience, what worked, what didn't work about helping your family members realize it needs to come outside of just the home? Anyone have any suggestions?
Kyle, it's
Yeah.
Lorna.
Oh, hey,
I
Dr. Warner.
Yeah, let me just share this. I'm sorry I'm not on screen, but I have eye drops in because I had some surgery done yesterday. But anyways, I wanted to say to Sarah, I have a very integrated family, and I want to tell you, the white folks in my family, I tell them, you gotta listen to my history. So when I'm sitting down with them at a dinner table or a breakfast table or whatever time I can sit down with, I always interject some type of history so that it'll be in their heads, whether they want to accept it or not, but they keep hearing it over and over and over again. And you know what? I've found in the last few years it's working because now they're saying, "Oh, I've done a little research on my own. What you said was true." And then they get a better understanding. So when you know true history, knowing your past, you can know where you're going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Amen to
Dr.
that.
Warner.
Amen to
And I
that.
just put the link in the chat again for the history of race in America. That was going to be my suggestion to start there. I mean, because it's an American story. Like I mean, it's not, and I get it. White people on many levels are individualistic, and it's how it makes sense that it continues to go. But I would say yes, share the video because it's American history. It's our shared history that should concern all of us, right? And so that's where I would start. But any other thoughts about that? Thank you, Dr. Lorna.
Well,
Yeah.
if I may, so Sarah, your family members are churchgoers, right? So they claim Jesus as their Lord and Savior, right? Maybe ask them, like, do you see Jesus excluding anyone?
Mm.
Do you see Jesus rejecting anyone? The only people that he has harsh words for are hypocrites. You say one thing and you do another. You say that you're kind, but you're not. You say that you love everybody, but your actions say otherwise, right? So, and it's not to make them feel bad. It's just ask questions. You're like, so where do you see Jesus doing that? Because I don't see it. Like honestly, I don't see that. I don't see that. And maybe it can start there, and maybe they'll just double down, and that's you can't help that. You
I'm
one thing we have to understand, I think, is that.
Wait. So,
Oh,
Joanne,
sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like the most powerful thing I could do is to invite him to go on a trip with me to the civil rights pilgrimage. I mean, how can you deny it when it's right there in front of you? Me just saying it is not gonna he's just gonna feel defensive.
I'll get even more defensive if he's not ready to see it. I'm telling you
He
right
won't-
now.
But he won't go though if he. I mean, but I'm going to convince him. I'm going to somehow convince him. That's
Start with the video. If he can commit to 80 minutes to the video and see what Reverend Joanne just said was about questions. We teach the CPR protocol. What do you think? And without even having to even give the backstory, I would start with the video and just ask questions about the spirit of God and this whole thing and what he sees. I think that's a great entryway. That's not about you having to be the expert. It's not about you putting pressure. And then after all that, yes, when he's ready, bring him on down for the trip and we'll change his life forever for sure.
And I'll meet y'all in Selma. I'll drive from Atlanta and meet you and your brother. So real quick, my battery's gonna die, Kyle. You know I'm in the car
Yeah,
with
that's all good.
grassroots activism, but also too, Ted is on the coast doing our call in 2 weeks. His wife was a Methodist pastor. Dr. Marcy is speaking on health disparities. He's on here as well. So I want to make sure about my computer dies. You just let him share. But Ellen, I know you're in Decatur, active in churches. We've organized together grassroots. Your hand is up. Please share. Like I was at your church conversation dinner 4 weeks ago. Yeah, please.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, I have a question and a comment. Like Kamal said, I'm a deacon at a Presbyterian church in a relatively progressive, diverse area, and but at a predominantly white church. And we are doing the work. We're trying to create these events to talk about it, to bring people into conversation. But at the same time, we often talk about how we feel like we're stuck in the awareness phase of it. Like we're always just trying to educate. And how do we get to the next phase of like action and relationship? And I just wanted to see if Joanna or Effie had any thoughts on that.
Absolutely. This is precisely what I love so much about a long talk, because it gives people actionable tools. Like, can I by myself change the world? Probably not. But if I can have a conversation with somebody, or the whole CPR protocol is all about giving you a tool to use, a technique, a way of engaging with other people in such a way that's not confrontational, but you're interrupting it. And that's vital. That is vital. Just interrupting it, maybe, you might think of it throwing sand in the gears, but just interrupting that, we're right and this is the way things are. Like, but is it though? If you can interrupt it in that moment and get someone to like pause, just pause, not necessarily change their minds, but just pause for a second, that's where change can happen. But if we're all doing this work, it's only going to change this intellectual thing. And white folk, we're all about that. Let's be real, right? That's the Eurocentric thing. We're all about words and written words and ways of expressing ourselves. But if you want to change something, you got to interrupt all of that. And the CPR protocol is exactly that. It's exactly that.
And just to piggyback on this, is I want to make sure if you have a conversation we've had conversations with people that came into a long talk on the other end of the spectrum, politically, capitalistically, and after having a conversation with them, they started doing things differently. They started supporting different businesses. They started thinking about it differently. And while it wasn't necessarily me changing the thing at that company, I spoke to a person, we had a conversation, and then they were able to move something. It's a ripple effect. So while it may seem like I know I'm asking for this, we want to ask for this big thing that we can do. And there might be some space that we can do a big thing, but it might be the person that we talk to that does the big thing. It might be the person who we introduce to that does the big thing. So I know I wish I had like a handbook to say, do all these things and we will move together. But it starts just opening your mouth and going.
Yeah, it's about the risk, right? It's about the risk of rejection. And as far as church stuff, Ellen, I mean, Presbyterians are different than Methodists, but we all have a hierarchy, right? What is your pastor doing in the pulpit? What is your pastor doing in community? What is your pastor preaching? And what are your Sunday school teachers teaching? What is happening in the life of the local church? What is happening in the life of the presbytery, right? In your community of Presbyterian churches? How are y'all investing in that? So maybe your local church is stagnant. Maybe you need to broaden it out to your presbyter or whatever we call it. I can't remember the correct word. One of my seminary professors was Presbyterian. He says we lose so many people because they go in the hospital, they can't spell Presbyterian, but they can spell Methodist. But we have, get those groups of people together, invite Colin and Kamal in to do the process with the larger group of church members that may not be a larger group of people, but different churches. And then you can spread it out that way too. Think about, yes, we're doing micro stuff, but think about the macro too. Like I am blessed that I serve a local church as well as I serve on a conference team. But I also am challenged because I'm a local church pastor, and sometimes I overthink what I need to be doing in my local church. And one of my parishioners is on this call, and she called me out about not advertising about a long talk more clearly and more vocally in my local church, even though we had put it out in some other places. But she's like, you should have said something more. She called me in on that, right? And so I say that as living in two worlds, right? The authority I have over here as well as being in the local church, and you have to figure out how to nuance that, right? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll connect you all on email as well, because I think there's some
Okay.
great spirit. You and what Ellen is doing here in Atlanta and
Yeah.
Decatur is powerful. I mean, she's been fighting for a while. So yeah, I would definitely connect you all. I want to make sure, just Dr. Marcy, you're going to be speaking in 2 weeks on health disparities. Just 30 seconds. I mean, I know, like I said, we met your wife. She was invited to the original long talk that Joe. This is the domino effect about taking action. Joanne met Colin and myself at the on the vineyard at the went to the slaves the 4th of July. We took it to the committee, got a long talk set up. His wife received an invitation, couldn't go, but knew us. Somehow we connected. But anyway, long story short, this man's life's work, advocacy in healthcare, what he's done leading hospitals, leading medical schools. I'll just let you give a quick second, but our paths cross back, and we are where we're supposed to be because we will not stop. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm not sure I'm worthy of that kind of statement. Let me just make sure that I'm on. What I will be talking about is the misuse of racism in medicine, and it's an exploration of my own errors in medicine. We are one race. We are a human race, and yet. And racism is a social construction as well as a sin, Effie. And that social construction has been used in ways in medicine that have been bad. And that's what I would like to explore so that people can push back against that. Because all of us have interactions with the medical establishment. And I think it's important for us to be aware of where medicine has been wrong and its thoughts about the individual differences that we all have, and yet we're all very closely related. The differences that are between us are often really related to the impact of that social construction of race. And the long talk really explained how that happens. So that's a brief intro.
Yes, thank you. And you're in Vermont, am I correct? I can't remember.
Correct. I am in Williston, Vermont.
Yes. So thank you for that. Kyle, wrapping up with just Effie and Joanne. We'll send out the flyers and the link for the conversation. Again, my battery's at 1%, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah,
And
no,
Effie,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we know we like to start on time and end on time. I put a link in the chat for more information if you want to spread the word more about a long talk. As always, continue to invite people to the long talk for alls that we're having every month, and also our CPR protocol practices. Just continue to keep showing up. We have a lot of work to do on the front lines, but it always feels better when I see you there with me. So thank you so much. I appreciate everybody. We'll catch you next time. See you soon.